Kamen Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here, and it's time for the review of a brand new Kamen Rider series, our second series in the Reiwa era, Kamen Rider Saber, the mythical themed Rider series, and the premiere was very okay. It was very paint by the numbers Rider, you know, there wasn't anything too surprising or different about it. It was like a kind of a checklist of Rider premieres from recent years. It was enjoyable, some things I liked, some things I'm worried about, but you know, nothing too spectacular. So anyway, until next time, no, I'm just kidding. So let's talk about the episode. So we start with kind of like a storybook that zooms out. A storybook, it's a book, you know how it is. I'm already starting weird in this one. And we immediately meet this character that's going to be narrating stuff, and I feel like it's just going to set the tone for the series. I'm like, alright, new series, let's see what this is about, and this guy shows up, I'm like, son of a bitch! Kind of describing the general core premise of like there was once this book that like held all stories and knowledge of all time, and there are these good guys that protected it and the bad guys wanted it. I'm like, dude, just go see a movie. You know, movies have invented, right? I get it, this was in the past, but now it's like, dude, stop, movies have been invented. And TV show. Just go watch The Office. Why are you after this stupid book? Like, I don't get it. They're fighting over this book. And then, that's gonna be a thing now. It exploded into a bunch of different parts. I don't know, unless I missed it, like why? Like, did they accidentally do it because of the fighting? Did they do it to save it and like disperse this knowledge? But basically, it split up into all the Wonder Ride books and also the PlayStation Wonder Book. That's like the key one they have to get. They have to travel back to E3 2014 or whatever it was and get that. That's the core point of the series. They say that exactly, and it's not even an exaggeration. So that's like the general premise, and then we get a little bit of a flashback to young Saber and his dad, the world's greatest ninja, and he like sacrificed himself to stop whatever was happening because like the fairy tale world or whatever was encroaching, and he like sacrificed it and made the world normal, I guess, you know, kind of like the main fights where the fairy tale world encroaches and they fix it. And then for whatever reason, Saber didn't remember anything and he's got a little book. He also feels guilty because he was absolute ass at holding this girl's hand. He's like, oh, I'm gonna save you with my pinky. I'm like, you should feel guilty for that. That was terrible. Use your whole hand. And then later when he has a flashback, he's using his whole hand. Way to go with that revisionist history, man. Catch up with him at his bookstore, and he's fallen asleep and these kids come in and he's having an imaginary tale with it, and then the girl of the series comes in and bothers him and basically is like describing the whole core premise in case you didn't watch the trailer or see the press conference or read anything about it. And she's like, oh, your name is whatever your name is. I just forgot it for a second. Saber. Toma, I think. That's your name, and you own this bookstore, and you're also a scriptwriter, and like, here's the general details. So she kind of goes over that, and he's like, don't you understand? When you come in here and talk to me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And every time you do that, it takes me time to get back to where I was. Did it even occur to you that I've agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? And so she basically wants him to concentrate, but he wants to play with kids. You know what I mean. He leaves because he had made another promise, which was to give this book to this little kid. I'm really worried this show is going to be filled with episodes with little kids in them. I'll probably complain about that later, but he's bringing a book to this kid, and that's when the attack starts happening, because kind of intermingled with this, we do get some other things. We get a couple look at Not Spectre, kind of just lurking in the background, being like, look, here's my lion book, so you buy the belt and you know what this is. And then we see the villains, like the group of the villains, like, oh, these are all the guys that are going to be best friends with Saber by the end of the show, and they're all just going to have the same point of view, and that's who that is. And they summon this, well, they call it a golem, but that doesn't look like a golem to me, not even like a graveler. And then they have like a blank book, and the book basically takes like a part of the city and transports it into fairy tale reality, or overlays fairy tale reality over it, and so he starts causing destruction with that. And all of his monologuing about whatever and destruction just offends Saber's very specific idealistic nonsense, which causes the driver and stuff to appear to him, and Spectre, Not Spectre's watching in the background, and he's like, oh my god, can't believe no homo sapien can wield the sword. I'm like, well, and then he transforms, we get the henshin sequence. It's a really elaborate henshin sequence for a writer. I mean, I know in recent years we've gotten ones where like a diorama literally comes up, but you know, for the most part it's like outside, and this is like an inside henshin sequence, like a Sentai one. I'm sure they'll do a quick version later, but I was thinking back, remember when Yuki used to be just and then now it's like here's a book and some sing-songs. I mean, it was cool looking, and I think the suit looks good in motion. I still wish the belt didn't always have to sing, because it's got a cool voice, but then it always has to sing. It's like, shh, this isn't American Idol. Transforms, he fights, and then during the fight, the monster doesn't like that he's losing, so he like turns the page, which I guess transports them to the PS2 graphics dimension. It was some of those shots we saw in the trailer. I do kind of dig this. Like, the CG's not the best, but I kind of dig the idea. I'll talk about something about in a minute, but he ends up defeating him there, and then he grows, and Saber's like, this isn't right, this isn't Sentai, and so he uses the finisher to defeat him, and then everything's cleared up, and at the end of the episode, he did finish his this month's or this week's or this day's, this hour's manuscript or whatever it is. It says, all work and no play makes Toma a dull boy. Just, you're watching The Shining recently, if you couldn't tell. And then at the end of the episode ends with Blade coming in on a little tiny lion, like, way to make an entrance. And that was the end of the episode. Yeah, though, I thought it was enjoyable. Like I said, kind of generic. It definitely gave me some things to worry about. Like, on the positive side, I like the general ideas behind it, the general theme. The score is pretty decent so far. Nothing like super standout, but it fits the vibe. It almost feels like they just reused Ryusoulger's score. The suit looks good in person. There's kind of a little bit mysteries dangling of, like, certain things. Nothing huge, like I don't have any huge questions like 0-1, but there's a little bit up in the air. It was generally enjoyable to watch. Main character is not too bad so far, like he's not as annoying as like a Aruto type character at the beginning where he screeches stuff, but I'm just worried that, because his whole thing is like, I keep my promises and I like books. His favorite movie is books. Worried that, not necessarily about his point of view, which is I'm worried he's going to be one of those characters that reacts to every situation the same. And like, he's like an NPC. Kind of like, that's why I didn't like Gentaro, and to a degree Aruto as well. It's like, no matter what the situation is, the person, what's happening, he always just says the same quotes. Like, he doesn't view situations differently, and I'm worried it's going to become that. And it's just going to be about preaching this one, like, 3-sentence monologue, and instead of a case-by-case basis, if that makes any sense. I'm a little bit worried about that. And the CG kind of stuff, like I said, was neat, but I don't know why they always do this. There's always, at the beginning of a Rider series, like a kind of poor CG sequence. They only use like 2 times and then it never happens. At least this time, there isn't like a mech thing to go along with it. Like, not all the time, but a lot of the time they'll introduce like a big mech or a bike or something, and for just a CG sequence, and they use it 2 times, and then they never use it again, and then the bike goes on sale for 11 bucks at HLJ. I'm like, are you even making money off of this? So I get a feeling that we're going to tone down that stuff as we go, because usually at the beginning of Rider, there's a couple cool things they do that I'm like, oh, that's neat, that'll make it unique, and then they just always roll back and do that stuff. So I kind of think that's probably what will happen. Like I said at the beginning, I'm a little bit worried because of his general interactions in this episode with kids, and then I guess his general character, of which it makes sense for that he likes telling stories to kids and stuff, which again, I'm not against that, but I'm just worried it's gonna have a lot of episodes with kids in them, and I don't like Toku kids, and they always end up being really annoying, and I'm worried about most of the filler episodes just having to do with that, or filler episodes not, you know, being about the character and it's just about this nobody kid we're never gonna see again, and we're just following his story. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Like, this episode was a mix of like just kind of enjoyable generic things and things that I'm a little bit worried about, because like I said, overall it was solid, but I felt it was just one of the most generic Rider pilots. Like, even 0-1, which I ultimately didn't end up caring for the series overall that much, I think had a little bit of a stronger start. It's not like its pilot, our first couple episodes, did anything revolutionary, but it definitely had more of a distinct style to it that kind of gripped me, and this just kind of felt like, you know, intro to Rider pilots. So I would probably overall give it a 7. But what did you guys think of Saber starting off the series? Let me know in the comments as always. As far as reviews for this go, I will be covering it weekly for the first little bit, and then I will likely go to little catch-up reviews where I check in at important arcs. So anyway, like I said, let me know in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell in case you try videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.